Hi, I'm Dr. Al Garza, and I'm here to address a kind of a concern that is going around the internet regarding this idea of being a Messianic Jew and the authority of the Jews and the rabbis simply because they are Jewish. I have gotten requests on, is there any validity to this as far as, should I join a Messianic community? Should I become under a rabbi? Should I learn this from a rabbi or from a Torah teacher? And it becomes a point where you have this idea of debate. If I'm not Jewish, or if you don't know Hebrew, or if you're not familiar with any of those things, then you have no authority in speaking anything about the scriptures. And I've seen this in the chat rooms on certain discussions and certain topics, which I won't get into. But there are individuals who pose this idea, and they are truly sincere believers in Yeshua-Jesus, and they hold the title of a rabbi, but yet they're trying to enforce that I am an Israeli rabbi, I know the language, therefore I know what I'm talking about. You don't, because you're not a rabbi, you're not a teacher, you're not anything in that respect, and if you don't know Hebrew, you don't know what you're talking about. And I have too been criticized, even though my mother is a Jewish Italian, and I read from the Hebrew scriptures and I study them. I've been accused that if I'm under in a contrary to a rabbi or someone in that teaching who is fluent in modern Hebrew, therefore he has more authority. And unfortunately, this is not a salvation issue, but this is a lack of respect. Paul deals with this in Romans chapter 2, and he speaks about those who are truly Jewish, or those who are a Jew and who can call themselves a Jew. And he's dealing with an uncircumcised versus a circumcised. And he says, even in those who are Jewish and they don't keep Torah correctly, or they say one thing about Torah and do another, that their circumcision is not valid. And they're not, in that respect, considered Jewish. Whereas an uncircumcised who keeps Torah and follows the scriptures and a believer in Yeshua, he is considered Jewish inwardly. And that's what he says in Romans chapter 2, where he says, "For he is not a Jew who is one outwardly, nor is circumcision that which is an outward in the flesh, but he is a Jew who is one inwardly. And circumcision is that which is of the heart, by the Spirit, not by the letter, and his praise is not from men, but from God." So everybody who's a believer in Yeshua, who follows his teachings, who considers Yeshua as their rabbi and their authority, and who relies on the Spirit of God to also teach them, as well as, looking at other teachers as well and getting insight, but you are a true Jew inwardly. That's why, in Galatians, Paul can also say that those who are of the faith are the seed of Abraham. So even as believers in Yeshua, if you're not Jewish by fleshly descendant, circumcision, you are a Jew inwardly and a direct descendant of Abraham by seed spiritually. And you are grafted into that, but you are a Jew inwardly. So this idea that, I'm Jewish and all that, it reminds me of what the Pharisees and the Sadducees told John, and where John said, look, you are of Abraham. They said, well, we are children of Abraham, the Pharisees and Sadducees said. And John says, look, God can raise up one of these stones to be a child of Abraham. So what? If we don't realize that, yes, there's benefits, of course, to knowing the language and getting insight, but it's not something that we should be boasting around saying, well, I'm a Jew, I speak Hebrew, I know the scriptures, you're not, therefore your opinions and your research and your ideas don't matter to me. I think that is very dangerous, because we are much Jewish inwardly if we keep the Torah and follow Yeshua and keep his teachings and keep the prophets and so forth. So this should not be a division of debate. This is not a salvation issue. My salvation is secure in the Messiah, Yeshua-Jesus, and who he is and what he did. And he is my rabbi, and he is my teacher as well. So I don't need to be under the authority of a rabbi to give me certain traditions that are sometimes rabbinically kept and passed down, that are not even in the Torah, they're not in the Tanakh at all. Some things are traditions that are brought in. That's my personal, my opinion on that as far as where I stand. I have enough tools behind me, resources, where I can read the scriptures for myself in the Hebrew language, and I can go outside and look at scholarly academic research and make up my own decision. It's not a salvation issue. My salvation relies solely on who the Messiah is and my faith in him and what he did for me in the gospel message. So again, if you're boasting that you're a rabbi and a modern Hebrew Israeli speaker and that nobody else has, an issue, I be very careful with that, because I challenge you. Even Paul said, it doesn't matter. You are a Jew inwardly, circumcised of the heart and of the mind, not on the outside. So, we can look and get from each other and learn from each other, even if you're not Jewish. And I think it's important that we're open to that and not just condemn everybody who's not to be, not being Jewish or in heritage, to not be someone who can contribute in their studies and research. So I hope this answers that question on who is Jewish and what it means to be Jewish. So again, I hope this helps answer that, and I challenge anybody to look at the scriptures on this in the new sense of what Paul has said, what Yeshua has said, what John even says to the Pharisees, and who really is of the seed of Abraham, and who can call themselves the seed of Abraham, not from the outward, but from the inward, and who is truly circumcised of the heart and mind, who truly is Jewish on the inside. And that's not to be boasting around and saying, well, I am and you're not, therefore you have nothing more to say. So I hope this helps a little bit. Please leave your comments, questions below. I try to answer them. I'm open to discussion on this topic. Again, this is Dr. Al Garza, and you have a blessed day, and God bless. Shalom.